So hello brothers, how are you all? I hope all of you are fine and stay fine in the future. So in today's video, we are going to cover the episode number 3 of Reality Quest Manhwa, in which we will cover chapter number 19, 20 and 21. So if any brother has not yet checked out the previous videos, go and watch them so that you can understand the story better. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's video. So at the beginning of today's chapter, we see that the monkey is saying to Dowan, "What kind of tricks are you playing with me? It is not possible that I will get beaten up by a toy." Dowan replies to this and says, "Trick? Ha, this is just a toy hammer." And then this monkey rushes towards Dowan and says, "You can't make me crazy." But Dowan deflects his punch very easily. And Dowan says, "Now you will see with your own eyes, is this a trick or not?" And Dowan attacks him, but he dodges it by bending down and goes straight and hits Dowan with a spear. But the sharp area of the toy hammer, Dowan keeps hitting it on its back, so that its grip becomes loose. And as soon as he sees, he also leaves Dowan. Anyway, which was a big mistake of his. Because now Dowan's target is his head. And before that, Dowan would have hit him with a hammer and opened his head. Then Dowan notices that his toy hammer is broken. And just because his toy hammer is now destroyed, Dowan can no longer use his weapon mastery skill. He looks around to see that something will happen so that I can make a weapon. He is thinking in his mind, if I get a garbage pipe, that would be enough. But then he notices that this guy is coming to punch Dowan's face. And it is exactly the same. This guy punches Dowan's jaw with his brass knuckles. And he says to Dowan, "Now I think you have become completely powerless without that toy." And then what? This scoundrel keeps raining punches on Dowan. He hits the first punch in his face, then the second and the third in Dowan's stomach. And after taking these strikes, Dowan drags it back and falls. And this scoundrel says to Dowan that I am going to kill you until you reach your death. After that, I will drag you in front of this scoundrel and have fun with him in front of you. And really, I will have a lot of fun in this. Because I will hit 2 targets with 1 arrow, where I will get revenge for my friends and I can also satisfy my own desires. Dowan gets up and says, "Really, where did you learn the lines of such horrible villains? Did you attend any school for this? I don't understand what fun you guys get in living like this." And this man is walking towards Dowan and says, "If you are really asking me this, then I want to say that living like this is more beneficial." And while saying this, he is walking towards Dowan. But then a slap falls on his face as if he drags it back. And he sees that Dowan has held his belt in his hand. I mean the belt he was wearing, now he took it off. And with this, Dowan's weapon mastery is activated again. He charges towards Dowan again. But Dowan strikes with the belt on his entire body. That this man himself does not understand that how can anyone beat him like this. And Dowan says while beating him, "What kind of garbage is filled in your mind? How can anyone even think of such a thing?" And then this man's brushed knuckle falls on the ground. And with one hand, he grabs Dowan's belt. And he says in a very beastly way that there is no point in being good. And he is about to hit Dowan's face with his other hand. But I don't know how Dowan releases his belt from his hand. And he picks up the same belt on his hand as if he was about to strike. And Dowan, what he does here is literally insane. Dowan takes him up in the air with the help of this belt. And he slams the ground so dirty that literally there are cracks on the ground. And with this one attack, this man is defeated here. And then we see the scene after a while, where we see Erin who is going somewhere with her dad. And Dowan is watching them from a distance. And he is thinking in his mind, "Finally, I saved them." Where we see that after a while, Dowan has come to his house. And after this fight, he was totally exhausted, where he was constantly thinking in his mind, how can a man be such a scoundrel? And Dowan says while looking at his family photo, "I can't believe that Dad has been dealing with such examples for almost half his life. If Dad was in my place, what would he have said to that man? Anyway, it doesn't matter now, because what matters is my rewards." And with this, we see that Dowan has got 5 bronze keys in return for defeating this man. And Dowan says here that I don't know when and where my next fight will start, so it would be better if I use them now. Otherwise, it can be risky to save them. And while I have increased my attacks, so I should increase my other stats. And while saying this, Dowan increases all his other abilities by 10 points. Where we see that his attack is 31, defense 21, and agility 31. And I don't know what does WP mean, but it has also become 1. And now Dowan is looking towards the same reward that he got from the hammer game, where he remembers that the system window had told him that he will get a dungeon map in his reward. But Dowan is thinking in his mind that there really exists something like a dungeon. And with this, he opens the reward and sees. And what he sees he is shocked to see it. Then a system window pops up in front of him, on which it is written that the location of the dungeon is shown in this map. And this map is of a building apartment, which is not even completely built yet. And here the dungeon's location is the construction site of this building. And again a system window pops up in front of him, on which it is written that the dungeon is going to open after 5 days. And he also finds out that he is not alone in the dungeon. In fact, he will have to take another person with him. Dowan is going to refuse this quest. But then another system window opens, on which it is written that if you don't complete the quest, you will get a penalty. Anyway, Dowan is not surprised to see this, because now he was familiar with all this. And Dowan says in his mind that it's okay. I know a guy who has the courage to clear this dungeon alone. And after this, we see the scene of Dowan's school, where a guy is sitting and saying that no, I have some other plans that day. And we see that this guy is none other than Yun Xiong. Like Dowan asked him to come with him. And Dowan says to him, but what happened? We were in the same team. But Yun Xiong tells Dowan that I have already said that I have some other plans that day. And one more thing, I am not your guardian. And neither will you tell me what to do. And after this, we see the scene of the cafeteria where Dowan is eating. And he notices that Zihan is sitting in front of him. And he starts thinking that it would be right to take Zihan there. And we all know what Dowan is going to decide here. Of course, he will not take Zihan with him. And we see the scene after the school is over, where Dowan comes out of the school gate and says, who should I take with me? And then a voice comes from his side, where should I take you with me? And then he sees that Zihan is standing in front of him. Dowan asks him what is he doing here. But Zihan tells him that he does not have his phone number. That's why he had to come here himself. When Dowan asks Zihan if something important has happened, Zihan says no, there is no such serious issue. But now that you have been a representative for a long time, so I think you should introduce him now. And as soon as Dowan asks, who are you talking to? So Zihan says the bullies of Bormerdam. And then we see the scene after a while, where these two people are reaching the same location. And Dowan says on the way that there is nothing that I can do as a representative. Is it really so important? Although Dowan was showing that he has no interest in going there. But this bastard was planning something else in his mind, where he feels that he will have a big gang, which will welcome him, and there he will be able to say with shock, that I am not a gang leader, but call me the president. And while thinking all this, we see that these two people have reached the location, where Dowan is thinking in his mind, that something like this will not be too much for a person like me. And as soon as the gate of this place opens, someone says it's a pleasure to meet you sir. And then what happened? Dowan had made a proper planning for this thing. He says while losing his time, we are a gang, so call me the president instead of sir. And as soon as he opens his eyes, he literally sees that there is only one person standing in front of him, who is telling him that sir is sitting here. On the other side, there is a person sitting on a chair, and this is none other than Seon Kang, who looks back and says, which sir? And as soon as Dowan and Seon look at each other, they both climb on each other like cats, cursing each other, where Dowan takes off his coat and says, who are you calling a loser? Do you want to break yourself again? And Seon says to him, you coward, you won the fight by turning my nose. Do you want me to make you sleep again? And Dowan says to him, what do you want? Do you want me to make your nose reach your eyes? Bro, literally after seeing these two, I remembered my Vincenzo Vasco, the go-to duo of all time. But after a while, Seon calms them down, and asks them to sit in their place. And she says to all of them, that we had to meet at least once. And then that long-haired guy, cutting Seon's words, says, I always wanted to meet you Dowan sir. And Dowan thinks in his mind, all that is fine. But what is this middle-aged uncle doing here? And then Dowan asks, where are the rest of the members of Bormaidong? And Seon says to him, the rest of the members? What are you saying? All the members of Bormaidong are already here. And Dowan says to them, but there were a lot of people in the assembly. But there are only 3 to 4 people here. What does this mean? Then this middle-aged uncle, I mean he is not an uncle, he is just a boy, but his looks are almost like an uncle, so like Dowan, I will also prefer him as an uncle. And he tells Dowan, when he left the old representative of Bormaidong, but before that, this guy can finish his talk. This guy says, that's it, there is no need to tell him anything else. And Seon also says to him, that yes, we have come here just to say hi hello. Nothing more than that. And then we get the introduction of these guys, where this bearded guy's name is C, and he is also a high school student. And after that we come to the goat, Seon Kang, whose chair is lying here, and says, if it wasn't for you, then I would have been sitting on that chair. and we come to know that Seon Kong is the deputy here. I mean vice representative. And Dowan was thinking in his mind, this guy is a scoundrel. And after that we come to Dowan, who is the representative of Bor My Dong. Insulting him, Seon says, you are just a representative by name, and leave everything. Tell me this, that you did not cause any trouble. And as soon as Dowan asks, what do you mean by trouble? And then Seon says, like you ignored my warning, and messed with Yun Shang, or you intentionally pointed the finger at some other reason, after which, something big happened, or something like that. And we see the flashback of all this, where our goat has done all this work, that too from the list. And of course, Dowan here is not going to tell all this to this witch, so he starts sweating, and he says, no, what do you think? How can I ignore your warning? And then Seon Kong says, don't worry, he can't do anything, because as soon as trouble comes in front of him, he will start shivering again, like a wet cat, and before that, his shivering starts again. Seon calms them all down, and says, Bor My Dong is very weak, so it would be better if we don't mess with any other reason. Until we don't give any special reason, they won't do anything. And Kong here is trying to be a little broad, so he says, don't worry, if someone attacks, then I can take down. And Dowan laughs at this from behind. He looks back, and says, you son of a bitch, you laughed at me. Dowan makes a weird face, and says, no I didn't laugh. But Seon says, you son of a bitch, you laughed at me. Where their eyes meet, that's when the bearded uncle says, Seon if you don't mind, can I order chips on the app? And seeing these three jokers, Seon started having a headache. And after that, the scene shifts. We see a building scene, where a scoundrel is sitting, and says, if you would have done this earlier, then I don't think that our work would have been so late. You have really wasted our manpower, and my time. And he is the deputy of Bongchor region, and in front of him, an uncle is sitting, who is saying, you know, that you're son of a bitch. And he is the deputy of Bongchor region, and in front of him, an uncle is sitting, who is saying, you know, that you're son of a bitch. Now what? Let's start with the weakest, by attacking Bor My Dong. And after this, the scene shifts and as we can see, a lot of people are ready here. I don't know what they took in their hands, but then they hear the sound of whispering from behind them, and they see two shadows in the dark of the night. And after that, we come to those two people, one of whom says, if you refuse later, then I will break you so much that you understand. And the other person says, yes, okay, when I have said it once, are you crazy? And that's when we get a voiceover from the background. I was thinking, it's really weird that the dungeon map brought us to Bongchon. You guys are the same guys who entered our school, so come on, it's our time to raid you now. And these two people are none other than Durandar of Bor My Dong, I mean Seon Kong and Dowan. After which we see a scene from the past, where we see Seon Kong, who is standing while talking on the phone. Are you crazy? Why would I help you? 1 second, what did you just say? Really, are you serious about this? Just give me the location, I'll be right there. Where the scene shifts again in the present, where Seon Kong says to Dowan, hey, sure, if I help you, you will definitely give the position of the representative, right? And Dowan says, yes, absolutely. Now shut up and help me quietly. And Seon says to him, come on, don't come in my way. But that's when we see a guy behind Seon. He attacks Seon with a stick from behind. And as soon as this stick hits Seon, literally, bro, the stick broke here. Seon holds his throat and lifts it in the air and says, do you think he can knock me? And then a guy comes to Seon with a metal pipe. But Seon picks up this guy and hits him on the head, so that both of them are knocked out at the same time. And Seon says in excitement, come on, let's see who has more strength. And looking at this, Dowan is also shocked. He doesn't understand that was this bastard so strong. And Dowan is thinking in his mind, of course, he didn't block my falcon drop like this. If there was no critical hit at that time, there was no chance that I could have defeated him. And then Seon starts running alone towards these guys. Dowan is cheering from behind, come on, you can win. But then a system window pops up in front of him, which says that if you knock out 5 people, then you will get a golden key as a reward. And then Dowan also gets stuck in his goal, where he hits a guy with a stick in a very dangerous way and knocks him out. And he is able to do this just because his weapon master skill is now active. Where the other guy attacks Dowan with a metal pipe, but Dowan blocks his metal pipe with his foot and hits his face with his rod. And as soon as the guy falls to the ground, Dowan strikes his stomach with his rod, as if this guy's work has also been done. And Seon Kong is also watching all this and he says, it wasn't that bad either. But then 2 guys attack Seon Kong again with a metal pipe. but Seon dodges them very easily and puts them to sleep in one attack. And Seon asks a guy, where is that guy after all? Where is your deputy Baek Chang-zi? And now we have come to the same guy, so he is sitting and telling his companion that why aren't they picking up the phone after all? Anyway, these people were not left in a condition to pick up the phone because the scene shifts back to the ground floor, where we see that Seon Kong and Don Neha have done the work of all the people here. Where Seon has held a guy by the neck and picked him up, where he tries to say something to Don, but then he notices that the other guy has taken out a knife and he is going to attack Seon with a knife. But before that, he was able to attack. Don throws his rod and hits it, which comes straight to this guy's head, and this is also good night. Where Don has completed his quest to knock out 5 people, and after that he gets the golden key. And Seon Haramzada says while waving his mouth, I didn't ask you to help. Come with me now. Let's go upstairs and catch those 2 guys. After which we see the scene after a while, where while climbing the stairs, Don's legs start to hurt and he says, brother, I can't go anymore. And Seon doesn't even care here, he says by climbing so many stairs, are you kidding me? And then these 2 people notice that someone is standing in front of them and the other guy says to them, I didn't expect this thing that you 2 will come here. And seeing this, Don recognizes that he is the same Haramzada who came to take him to his school. And Kong starts having fun with him and he leaves him and goes upstairs and says, hey Don, I'm leaving him on you, I'm going to catch that deputy, you take care of him. And then this guy, his name is Il Sayak, he tries to catch Seon. But then Don hits a blind spot on his back so that his attention comes back. And Don is thinking in his mind that I don't need to mess with the final boss. I'll beat him up here, Seon will handle everything upstairs. And just because Don used his weapon mastery against this guy, he also gets a weapon. And this guy is making him hold a roller as a weapon with which he is painted. And then the scene shifts to the top floor where the deputy is sitting, who turns his head back and says, oh, look who's here. There's a guy here who wanted to be a representative. But what happened to him? He broke his head while becoming a representative. And he's taunting Seon here, which of course he didn't like. And Seon also replies to him in full, you're saying this about me, but who are you? You're such a wet cat that you can't even see your representative because of fear. And as soon as they hear this, the Baek Chang-zi is ready to charge into Seon. These 2 guys come face to face and then what was going to happen? You guys can guess, they're both well mixed. And then the scene shifts, we see Don, who has his face glued to the wall. And the guy standing in front of him, I mean Il Sayag, he says, I don't need a weapon. I can turn you into a dog with my bare hands. And a system window pops up in front of Don where it says, your target is the allied monster Il Sayag Joe. And Don's mind is blown. He's thinking, what the hell is this allied monster? And before he slaps Don kicks him on the balls. Like this guy blocks it, which was expected. Don quickly walks away and thinks, this is something different. And another system window pops up in front of him that if you defeat this allied monster, you'll get a grand reward. After which Don is fully motivated and points his finger at him and says, today I'm going to put you to sleep forever. And at this point, our chapter number 21 ends. And now I hope so you enjoyed this video. If so, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And do give a high point. I'm saying this to a genuine audience. And I know in the last chapter, I sped up the story a little just because I wanted to finish this video quickly. Anyway, that's it for today. See you in my next video. Till then, goodbye homies.